Welcome, my beautiful ones. I am so excited that you're here with me today. And I know I say that every week, but we keep having these sensational topics that need to really be explored. I'm Dr. Marcia Martin, the heart healer, and today we're going to talk about surrender. Now, if there was something that I was absolutely convinced that I was never going to do, it is surrender. Now, you have to remember that when I was growing up, we didn't talk about the patriarchy because we lived with it. Every position of authority in which I had to interact was held by an older male. So we didn't know anything except the patriarchy. And unfortunately, your only requirement for holding the position in most cases is that you were an adult male. You may or may not have education about the particular area in which you have been assigned authority. So when you would go to a male for advice, and you had to go to them for advice because they were the people in the position, you would generally get a speech or a lecture. And most of that lecture told you what was wrong with you, why you should be ashamed of your actions, and why everything was your fault. Now, I have no problem taking responsibility for something, but over the years, I have certainly discovered that when I understand how something happened, what my part in it was, and how I could do better, change my behavior, I would get better results. But in this patriarchal society, you didn't get a lot of understanding or explanation. You just basically got a lecture about what you had done wrong. So when I reached adulthood, I had already decided no way in hell was I going to stay in a subservient position to other males. Now, I was happy to get married. I thought that would be fabulous, but I expected my marriage to be a partnership, not husband has all of the authority or all of the say. Because as I grew up into adulthood, women had started stepping into those positions, and it became apparent that we could have a voice and we could be in positions of authority. And it felt so much more freeing to have a mix than just to have this narrow little road of adult male equals authority. So, when I began on my ascension journey, I had a couple of goals. And one of the primary goals was there was no way I was going to give up my freedom or independence. I wanted to learn everything I needed to know about the divine. I wanted to understand how I could make use of this incredible energy. But I didn't want to be subservient. I didn't want to be told what to do. And I didn't want to feel bad any longer. I had spent too much of my life already feeling bad. So today we're going to look at two different sides of surrender, the dark side and the divine side. So let's get started. Now, the reason that you may not want to surrender could be exactly what I was going through, because you believe or have been told that surrender means that you have to give up your independence, just say goodbye to having your own thoughts and your own free will journey or your own ability to make decisions. Or perhaps you're already feeling beaten down by shame, and surrender just feels like one more aspect of shame or aspect of yourself to feel ashamed of. And perhaps people in power or in authority took advantage of you. Perhaps you were abused or belittled by some of these people. If that happened to you, I don't care who that person was, how many titles they held, how many letters were after their name. Abuse is wrong, and it's always wrong. And perhaps you have the understanding that people in power and authority are expected to take advantage of you or to force you to do something that makes you feel uncomfortable, or something you wanted was withheld from you unless you agreed to do something for a person in authority. They withheld this thing that you may have wanted. Hi, my beautiful Evan. And so some of the things they might have withheld: affection, money, status. And they kept telling you, gosh, if you would just do things my way, I would give you all of these things. So every time you agreed, you felt like you were surrendering a part of yourself. And you may have been subjected then to hurt and abuse. You might have been taken advantage of. So if it's in a work situation, work harder, get paid less, or get paid the same amount, or even experiencing promises that weren't kept. That's the dark side of surrender. Or perhaps it would be better for us to say that's the ego side of surrender. And even though I said that I grew up in a patriarchal society and that's all we know, I'm not bashing men. I don't think there's anything wrong with men. I think there's something wrong with that role model that we all adopted because it didn't reward people based on merit. It rewarded people based on their age and their gender, and it encouraged them to belittle others. And that is just not in alignment with the divine. So let's take a look at the dictionary definition for surrender, because maybe that's where we're getting confused. Well, the dictionary says surrender means to yield something of to the possession or power of another. Okay? That's another reason I don't want to surrender. I don't want to give up the empowerment that I am feeling as an independent being, whether it's male or female, doesn't matter. Or perhaps you are supposed to deliver up possession on demand or under duress. So someone could be threatening you to surrender some part of you or something to someone else. And then we have to give oneself up as into the power of another, to submit or to yield. Okay, this was the one where I decided, heck no. I had been down the religious path, tried every different kind of religion. Of course, all of the preachers or ministers that were at those churches were male, older men. And some of them, I have to tell you, I had one of the most fabulous male ministers at a Unity Church in North Carolina, an amazing man. I also had some very fabulous women ministers, but that's way down my ascension journey. In the beginning, all I had were unevolved men, and it was not a not a happy feeling. It was definitely letting me engage with that dark or ego side of surrender, because it was someone or something using their power to gain something from me. Oh, we'll give you this blessing if you tithe to the church, or you do this work to the church, or you do this job, or you do it our way. It was always contingent upon me or any of you doing what someone else wanted in order to gain their favor, as though they had something that only they knew how to get, and you had to do or be what they wanted in order for you to receive it as well. It was sort of the be, think, act like us in order to be admitted. And so you'll see this in cults. You'll see this in some religious groups. And I am not condemning religion, just sometimes religions are very narrow. You also can see it in social organizations. There is no organized group that is exempt from this if they're not paying attention and not really careful about the tone they're setting. And Evan says, would you kindly remind me, hold on, remind folks, men especially, that surrendering does not make you weak or a wuss or take away your masculinity in any way. Yes, we're getting there. First, we're going to look at the dark side of all of the ways in which surrender is not helping anyone when it is offered from the ego. The ego will tell you, whether you are male or female or you just don't identify with any gender, the ego will tell you that you are weak or less than or something awful if you don't do it the way the society or the group that you want to belong to thinks is appropriate. That's why you may not feel comfortable with the idea of surrender. When you are engaging with the ego in that way, you are giving yourself limitations, you are enforcing restrictions, and there's going to be no way for you to really expand from this place, because just the very definition of what is expected from these groups is obedience and surrendering to their view of what proper obedience should look like. It's like they're almost as though they are a policing organization. They are going to demand compliance, and they are going to insist. And this is especially true in cults. You will notice that this is the theme across the board in a cult, that they say you must let go of your own way, do it our way without any question, and follow blindly. And this can be hairstyles, clothing, there's very much a monochromatic scheme going on when you're in any kind of a cult that is trying to gain dominion or power, not from a divine source, but for the purpose of taking advantage of you. So, isn't that what the divine is asking? No, it's not even close, which is why it makes me so sad that so much of religion has forgotten who the divine really are. They stepped away from a partnership and stepped into a rule book so that everybody would do, say, and think the same thing. So let's take a look now at what the divine is really talking about when they are asking you to surrender, what it is and what you'll receive. Because let me tell you guys, if anybody tells you, do this, and they can't tell you what the reward is for doing that, what you're going to receive, how it's going to benefit your life, or why it is important, they are not offering you a gift of any value. Everything the divine is ever going to give you will have benefit. It will enhance your life. It will allow you to expand, and it will trickle into every area of your life so that you are living an abundant life, not just an abundance of spiritual interaction. So let's take a look at what the divine says. They do say, follow me. But what are you going to get? You are going to get guidance, support, expansion, freedom. Now, you may think, okay, I don't want to follow anybody. I'm on my own path and I know exactly where I'm going. I feel good about my life. Why do I want to possibly submit to the divine and have all of these wonderful plans that I've made be interrupted? Well, you first of all, it's not a given that your plans are going to be interrupted. If you're on a great path that supports your highest good, there's absolutely no reason for that path to be disturbed. However, if you are ready to fall off the cliff, you will be delighted to receive divine guidance. So, what's the difference between what you see in terms of your path and what the divine are able to see? When we are in these physical bodies here on the earth, it's as though we live in sort of a fog. And perhaps we can see a few feet in front of us, but we can't see generally years into the future. We can't even see a couple of days sometimes. However, the divine are not limited by that vision. They don't have those restrictions. So they are able to see a clear picture of who you are, where you're going, and what you're going to experience based on that. And they can give you guidance that will help you if you are 2 seconds from imminent disaster and you'd rather avoid that, they can help you steer away from that gently, kindly, and with great respect for who you are. There's no forcing, there's only suggesting. So, you want to follow the divine not because you don't think you're capable, but because you want to become more fully yourself. So, why should we surrender? Well, it can be uncomfortable if somebody says to you, well, you're going to be letting go of everything that you once held dear. But again, that is not the truth. That's the illusion. What you are letting go of is every part of you that is restricting you or limiting you, every part of you that is not you. You are able to open. You are able to become more. You are able to align with who you really are. And I guarantee you, it will be some version of who you always wanted to be. The desire was planted in your heart, and the divine help you create and follow the roadmap that will get you there. So they're not going to ask you to give up anything that is supporting you. They're going to ask you to identify with the authentic part of you. You may be asked to give up those parts of you that are in place just to please other people. If those parts are damaging you, you'll be able to let go of your limitations. You will begin expecting more of yourself and you will be able to achieve it. You'll also receive more. As the more that you give, the more that you're able to participate in life, the more that you are able to expand, the more that you have room to receive. You'll also be letting go of your feelings of lack. Those feelings of, I'm not good enough, smart enough, rich enough, powerful enough, whatever it is, whatever not enough you've got in your life, the divine can help you let go of that. It doesn't mean, however, that you would stop being rich or influential. You would just stop being something that you're not. There's nothing wrong with money. Money is wonderful. Money can help you really make a huge impact for good in the world. Influence can help you make a huge statement in the world for good. So, those things are not going to be taken from you. All that you will let go of are those heavy burdens that have been slowing you down. It's the example that they gave me here is it is working in an industry that you abhor, or the freedom to work where it feels good to you. It doesn't necessarily mean that every person who is suddenly deciding that they are going to surrender to the divine is going to change jobs. It just means that you will have more freedom in your life to do the things that you want to do. So, what's going to happen when you surrender? And Sirius, hello, hello. And Sirius is saying, he's sharing a good example. I refuse to allow a male choreographer to use a poem I wrote about child abuse, as he expected me to have a relationship with him. I said my work stands in its power and no casting couch. Amen to that. Absolutely. That is the perfect example of surrender when it is used by the ego, and it's the dark side of surrender. I'll give you this fame and this money and this uh, fabulous celebrity status that you may be desiring, but I'm going to take your soul in the process. Not necessary and not appropriate. So, what's going to happen to you when you surrender? What do you have to give up? That was the thing that scared me the most. I didn't want to know that I would have to give up anything because at the time I had so little. And so I was hanging on with all of my might to everything that I had because I was tired of losing, tired of being destitute, tired of being taken advantage of. So, what are you going to have to give up? Well, you're going to give up your false beliefs. I had to give up the idea that God was going to take everything of value from me. So, you got to give up your false beliefs about yourself and others. And you have to give up your feelings of unworthiness and powerlessness. Now, one of the reasons I was so afraid to surrender is that I had felt powerless for so long. I had felt unworthy. I still was filled with feelings of unworthiness, and I didn't feel very powerful. So the fact that the divine were going to ask me to give those up, the little bit of power that I had and that little bit of self worth that I had been able to gather, was absolutely paralyzing. Now, again, it was me not understanding, it was not them asking. So I had a lot of work to do. Sorry about that. There are other people home with me. I had a lot of work to do in order to understand the divine perspective. So, what do you gain? Do you get that fancy house and cars and power? Maybe. If that's for your highest good, there's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't get that. But you're going to begin seeing as God sees instead of as the ego sees. So if you had the fancy house and the cars and the money and the power and it was making you miserable, you may feel better giving those up and living a more simplified life because it would bring you joy. However, if you need that in order to do your work in the world, there's no reason for you to need to let go of it. So you want to see what is instead of the illusion of everything that exists. See the good instead of the bad. So you will see the union, the oneness, the value of every being. You'll see what's right, and you'll see purpose instead of chaos. Remember, the ego's purpose is to drive us toward the place where we are seeking union with the divine. So the ego loves to create chaos and confusion while it is telling us we are becoming more powerful and more independent. It's a wonderful tool, but don't get lost in its lies and its illusionary state. You also are going to be able to lose the fear of what is coming, because when you have that greater vision, it is so much easier to be peaceful, to relax, to just say, it's okay. I am doing everything that I know to do. I am trusting the divine to either show me what more I need to do or to do what I cannot do. And I can rest here in this place of confidence rather than fear. You're going to gain assurance that you're not alone. And you'll gain less painful consequences because you're making better choices. So, as I have said so many times, the ascension journey does not mean there are no more consequences. We must be very clear. Challenges will continue. There will be consequences. But when you can adjust before you're too far in the wrong direction, you can minimize the consequence. And when you are automatically making better choices, you minimize the consequences even further. So, yes, you're going to have challenges, but you're going to have better tools. And you're going to gain, and this one was another one that I was like, oh, I don't know. You're going to gain more responsibility. And this is because you will have a greater understanding. So, in the beginning, when you begin partnering with the divine, long before you really understand the whole concept of surrender, they will do so much to help you because we're babies. We're being in that womb setting where they do so much for us. But we don't want to stay infants. We want to grow. And as we grow, we're going to be given more responsibility because you will have greater knowledge, greater understanding. You'll have more tools and you will have better access to your guidance because you're just more expanded, more in tune. You're going to have more power. You will step into your own personal empowerment, better able to manifest. And that with that power, of course, comes the ability to do good or to do harm. And so they're going to ask you to only do good with the gifts that you are given. I have found that understanding that we are connected to all beings makes it very difficult to want to harm another person. You can still get angry, lose your temper, get frustrated. But when you recognize that what you do to another, you are doing to yourself and other innocent beings, it becomes much less interesting to get revenge or to take advantage of someone else. So, no one is better than anyone else, and everyone has something to offer. All of you are necessary. Oh, hi, Star Girl. And thank you, Sirius. I thought you got to forgive me on this chat, guys. I don't always know what's going on the technology side of things. They are such a wonderful help that I am a little lacking in the technology because they just guide me to where all of the answers are. So forgive me if I forget to look. Forgive me if I don't mention you. Forgive me if I just forget this is here. You are loved and you are important. Hey, Pastel Waves. So glad you're here. Star Girl, thank you so much for being here and bringing your love, all of you. I don't know that you really understand how impactful it is for you just to show up and be loving. I'm going to ask them to give us an example of that. That will be, incredibly meaningful for all of us. I did share about the grocery store, but love makes an incredible difference and makes you the most powerful person in the room. You don't have to say a word, no yelling, no grappling for authority. Just beam your love out into the world. And this is how we are going to change the world. We hear a lot about these new world order and, the world's going to blow up and it's going to end. There won't be a violent upheaval. There will be the sharing of love, the sharing of kindness and compassion, the understanding of who you are and your value. And that's why God is asking you to surrender. They want you to be a more perfect part of the whole. Not that you are imperfect, they just want you to see how valuable you are in the whole. And if you're over here by yourself trying to do it all alone, you are missing out on the strength of the group. And together we can do so much more. So I appreciate each and every one of you. I am so honored that you take time out of your day to be here with me. And I am so grateful that you are in the world with me. I can't do this alone. And I need each one of you to continue to shine your light in whatever area you may be so that your area of the world starts radiating, pulsating with love, and we'll just create this huge net of love. So, thank you all, you beautiful beings. Um, I'm just so grateful that you're here. And I have to share with you what's our time? Okay, we're really pretty good here. I got to share with you the being that will help you if you are really struggling with surrender. And you may not think that I have chosen wisely, but remember, this brain isn't doing the choosing. This brain is doing the choosing. So just listen to the story about his life, and then you will understand why he can be such a powerful force in your life to help you understand when it is a divine prompting. And oh gosh, I'm sorry, guys. I have so much cat hair on my face. When it's a divine prompting, and when it might be the ego trying to get you into trouble. So we got to go to the life of St. Francis. Now, St. Francis is a really interesting character, born into wealth, born into nobility, didn't lack for anything in his life. As a teenager, got into quite a lot of trouble. He was considered quite arrogant and reckless, but he was also alive during the Crusades. So, as a noble person, one of the things that you were required to do as a male in that time is to go off to war. And so off he goes, and he is fully suited in beautiful, shiny new armor with the most magnificent horse that he could possibly have. And he has a very fabulous sword and maybe a lance or whatever, a shield for sure. And off they go. He's got this army of peasants who probably are on foot. And here he sits on this magnificent war horse. Well, all is good, except war in that time was not so much about being right as it was about capture and ransom the people that you are fighting against to get more money. So, who's going to be the biggest target on the battlefield? Well, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to kill or maim somebody who is completely covered in armor and who is riding a very powerful horse because they're probably going to be able to get away from you. Sure, you can kill all the peasants, and maybe you'll be successful in um, dueling with this knight, but your real objective is to get the gold. So here you have this young man, very arrogant, very brash, head to toe, brand new armor, reeking of money. And he goes off to the Crusades. He's going to save the world and tell everyone why they're wrong and why the Christian view is the only right one. Okay, well, nobody wants to be told that anyway, and they could care less about your religion. They just know here comes this guy. He is easy money. So they managed to capture St. Francis and whatever part of his army they did not kill. And he gets thrown in to a filthy cell. It's disgusting. Disease is rampant. I'm sure that they had cuts on them that were not, well, they wouldn't even have any antibiotics at that time. So they have cuts on them. They're festering. They're getting maggots. There are probably rats in there in the cell with them. And at one point, St. Francis becomes delirious. Now, he felt a great deal of guilt for getting his people in this circumstance, the people that were under his command. He always had a good heart, even though he had so much privilege and money that he was very arrogant. He still had that good heart. And so he began trying to give his people some of his rations, which meant, and there were not enough anyway, really to sustain anyone. So this meant that St. Francis not only was suffering from wounds that had probably become infected, well, definitely had become infected, but he was also not getting enough food. And so he became delirious. And in his delirium, he began having conversations with God. And this went on. I think it took almost a year and a half for them to negotiate his ransom and release, not only him, but all of the people that were in the prison with him. And during this time, he is just convinced that he is hearing the voice of God. But remember, he is emaciated, he is sick, possibly dying, and nobody really believes that he's hearing the voice of God. They believe he's on the way out and he's just saying anything, just ranting and raving. So he gets home and he tries to say to his very strict parents that he is really interested in going the religious route. He's not interested in following in his father's footsteps and becoming a cloth merchant. He doesn't want the wealth and the trappings anymore. He doesn't want his stall in the bazaar or be an import or export person. He wants to worship God, to share the love of God, and to teach others. Father is not having it. Father is absolutely incensed that this son would demean him in this way. Father has worked all of his life to pass down this incredible business to his son. It's a great mark of status. And St. Francis refusing it is like a slap in the face. So Father says, no way. Give up this crazy talk right now and put on your silks and go out there and make some money for the family. So he goes out and he encounters a beggar. And he says, here, I want to give you the money in my pouch and I want to trade clothes with you. I need to understand what it's like to really be humble and to have to rely on God for my provision. So he does that, but then goes home. Dad goes ballistic. What the heck? Where are your clothes? Where is the money that you left with? And why have you not made even more? I don't understand. What's wrong with you? And St. Francis keeps talking about God and love and peace and just walking the way of the Christ. Dad is not having it and ends up chaining St. Francis to his desk so that he is unable to get out into the marketplace and do any more of this crazy stuff. He wanted to care for lepers. He wanted to put himself in dangerous situations to care for others instead of being the young nobleman that is supposed to take over the family business. So he finds himself chained to a cot, chained to the desk, and laying on a cot in his father's office. Quite a bit of time goes by, and he just keeps on with this crazy talk about how he is not going to be part of the merchant guild and he is going to devote his life to God. And they try all sorts of interventions and nothing is successful. Somehow, and I forget the story now, I forget how he manages to get away from being chained up, but somehow he is released. And upon his release, he turns his back on the family and all of their wealth and goes out into the forest. And he says, I am just needing peace. I need to find God. I need to fully understand this presence that I met while I was in my prison cell. And then I want to share it with others. But first, I must experience it. So he goes out into the forest and just lives foraging in the forest. And he begins talking to God. And as he's talking to God, he's getting more and more able to channel this loving presence. And at some point, God says to him, I want you to rebuild my church. And he looks around and he's still very new in his journey. He looks around and he sees this old broken down chapel and he thinks, okay, well, I guess I'm being asked to rebuild this physical structure. And so he spends hours, so much time hauling the materials and just creating this chapel. And the whole time that he is engaged in this rebuilding effort, he is talking to God. He is experiencing God. And he gets finished with the chapel. And by the time that he has gone through this incredible growth experience and spending all of this time in the divine presence, he understands that God was not asking him to build a physical structure, but to build a church of the heart, to help people understand who God is and what God is asking of each and every person. And so he begins practicing preaching. Before he was just talking to God and listening to God, but now he's actually practicing sharing the word of God, the love of God. And this is when he goes in the forest and, of course, doesn't have an audience, but becomes so enraptured by what message he's delivering and is so filled with the love of God that all of the wildlife no longer fear him. You just have to open your heart to God. I want you to have this understanding. Sometimes I get overwhelmed by how much good there is. I know there's a lot of bad in the world, but please keep your heart open to all the good that exists because that's what's real. So St. Francis begins preaching, and all of the wildlife are just so delighted by his words and the not the words, by the energy, by the intention from the flow of love that is emanating from God through to him and then through him out into the world. And this is why St. Francis is always seen with all the animals, not because he's the patron saint of animals, which I believe he might be, but because he was so good at channeling the love of God that all of the animals, the wild animals, lost their fear and came near and were supported by that love that came from him. And from that place, from that seeing the effect of love, oh, look at this. This is the example I was asking for of how much love can overcome everything. So, from that place of love, of just this incredible outpouring of love from the divine, he is able to touch the heart of every one of these creatures. And then he goes from that place back into his city and starts gathering others that want to have this experience as well. And that's how the Order of St. Francis was born. It was one of the most heart centered orders that was ever created. I don't know what it may be like today, but I know that when you interact with the energy of St. Francis, the energy is such pure love. So, if you are struggling with whether you should surrender to the call of the divine upon your heart, ask St. Francis to guide you. He will guide you with love, he will guide you with serenity, he will guide you with no hype, just peaceful filling and expansion. If somebody comes to you with a lot of hype and a lot of conditions and a lot of do this, do that, and you'll get this reward, and it feels uncomfortable to you, please honor your heart and do not go forward with that. Instead, call on St. Francis, ask for his guidance and support to find the path that will be right for you. And I guarantee you, you have not been left out of the divine plan. There is a path that is right for you. There is a purpose that you are here to fulfill. And there is a place in the world where you belong. Each one of you are important, and this world cannot exist without you. So, if any of you are hurting today, any of you believe that you are not worthy, or you're starting to think about suicide or ending your life in one way or another, understand that when you leave the earth, you take something of great value, and we need you. Reach out if you are feeling hurt, lost, or confused. You are not alone, and you are very, very loved. And I am absolutely certain I've gone over my time now. Let me just read what you guys all wrote to me. Serious. I love that you have tech problems too. Oh boy. Thank you all for being here. Hey, Audrey, so glad you're here. Serious, thank you just for sharing your love. All of you that have been here today and have commented. And there's only one thing I want to ask of each one of you. Actually, there are two things. If you have time in your day, let's please make sure that we are holding in our hearts everyone that is struggling in any way, whether it is illness, whether it's financial concern, whether it's any challenge. Let's just commit to each other and to the world that we will send up blessings and love so that everyone will have an easier path. Remember, when you bless someone else, you also receive the blessing. So, however you want to go about that, whether you call it prayer, meditation, a ritual, whatever it is, just share your love in some way with others who are hurting. And the other thing I want to ask you is if you know somebody who would benefit from being here with us in this live, please share this with them. We don't want anyone to feel unloved or unwelcome. And you are the greatest ambassadors that exist. So please share with everyone you think would benefit. So, guys, thank you all. I've got to go be with some really incredible beings in my Heart's Desire counseling group. As always, you are welcome to join one of our groups just to be a part of the My Heart's Desire community where you get all of the tools and the techniques that the angels are giving to me. I'm just about to share something new in a few minutes with my group. And it is just a wonderful place to know that you are both loved and supported, but also to gain tools. This is my job. So I have plenty of time to get information, to understand the technique, to practice the technique so that I can share it with someone else, to spend the time refining it so it actually works with our life. You may not have that time because you have another job in which you're obligated to. So take advantage of the time that I have to give you these tools. I guarantee you, I am taking advantage of all of the tools that others have provided to me because I don't have any other time to look at things that are outside of this work. So I rely heavily on the tools that others in other areas of work have put together. But I expect that you should rely heavily on me because I do have the time to develop these tools with the angelic assistance. And that's what I want you to have. So, gotta go. Love you all. Thank you all for being here. And remember, send blessings to all. Let's make this world a better place and share with anybody you feel would benefit. All right. Thanks, everyone.